The Zelvax Dominion had long ruled the galactic frontier with an iron grip. To them, war was not a contest, it was a formality, a reminder to lesser species that resistance was futile. The moment their war fleets arrived in orbit, civilizations crumbled. Those who surrendered were spared, albeit as vassals. Those who resisted were eradicated. It was a pattern as old as their empire itself. And now, humanity stood at the precipice of that choice. The transmission arrived in every human system simultaneously, a display of the Zelvax's technological superiority. Their High Chancellor, Zurkoth, loomed on screens across colonies and stations, his dark carapace glistening under the luminescent glow of his command throne. His compound eyes radiated nothing but cold certainty. Humans, your existence has been tolerated long enough. You are reckless, unruly, unfit for the order we have built across the stars. The Dominion does not offer negotiation, only submission. Surrender now, and you will live under our rule. Resist, and you will not live at all. The message was direct, absolute. The Zelvax did not make threats, they made promises. They had crushed empires with far greater fleets than humanity's. To them, this was not even a war, just another species to be brought to heel. On Earth, the United Terran Coalition assembled in emergency session. Leaders, generals, and strategists convened in the war chambers beneath Geneva's subterranean command center. Reports flooded in. The Zelvax fleet was vast, thousands of warships, planet-killer dreadnoughts, and ground forces that could wipe out entire cities in hours. Their technology dwarfed anything humanity possessed. There was no conceivable path to victory. The logical choice was to surrender and hope for mercy. The debate raged, pragmatic voices advocating for negotiation, desperate minds grasping for any alternative to annihilation. And then, amid the din of uncertainty, a single voice cut through. Deep. Unwavering. Unapologetic. They think we're afraid. The room fell silent. A figure stood at the head of the chamber, face shadowed by the glow of tactical displays. The Supreme Commander of the Terran Defense Forces. A soldier who had seen wars on Earth, who had led in the trenches before humanity had even left the solar system. They see us as weak, he continued. They look at our divisions, our struggles, our lack of interstellar experience, and they assume we will kneel. They believe they have already won. He turned, his eyes scanning the faces before him, leaders of nations, admirals of fleets, men and women who had sworn to protect humanity, now teetering on the edge of despair. Let them believe that, he said, his voice like steel against fire. Let them believe we are prey. And when they come for us, when they bring their fleets, their armies, their arrogance. A pause. A slow, deliberate exhale. We'll show them what war truly is. The room erupted, not in chaos, not in panic, but in resolve. There was no more debate. No more fear. There was only the undeniable truth that had defined humanity since its first battles in the dirt. When backed into a corner, humanity did not break. It fought. The response to the Zelvax was broadcast less than an hour later. A single message. No long speeches. No negotiations. Just a simple statement, relayed across the stars. You want war? We'll give you a war. For the first time in recorded history, a species had refused the Zelvax ultimatum outright. No concessions. No surrender. Just defiance. The Dominion's war machine lurched into motion, fleets mobilizing, invasion plans finalized. Zurkoth watched from his war throne, mandibles twitching in amusement. So be it, he thought. Let them resist. Let them die screaming. The war machine of the Dominion moved swiftly, an avalanche of steel and fire descending upon human space. Their fleets poured into the outer colonies, expecting nothing but panic and surrender. That was how it always went. Weaker species broke before the first shot was even fired. A show of force was often enough. When that failed, a swift, crushing strike finished the job. Humanity, however, did not flee. It did not cower. It did not beg. It fought. The first engagement took place in the Proxima system, a relatively small outpost on the galactic frontier. The Zelvax, anticipating a routine planetary conquest, sent a detachment of warships, enough to subjugate a world in mere hours. Their ships descended with practiced precision, targeting defense grids, infrastructure, and communication hubs. It was a textbook operation. Until the unexpected happened. The orbital bombardment had barely begun when the Dominion fleet's systems went dark. Warships, built for planetary annihilation, suddenly found their navigation scrambled, their weapons disabled. Their communications were jammed by a signal so complex, so unpredictable, that even their advanced decryption systems failed to crack it. Before they could recover, the first human strike hit. Not with ships. Not with a grand counteroffensive. But with something they had never encountered before, cyber warfare at a level beyond their comprehension. Within minutes, Dominion vessels lost control of their thrusters, drifting helplessly as automated defense platforms, thought to be disabled, came to life and opened fire. On-board weapon systems turned against their own ships, reactors overloaded, engines went critical. Confusion spread like wildfire as their own fleet collapsed into chaos. That was when the real attack began. Human strike craft, small and fast, emerged from hidden bases across the system. They were outgunned, outmatched in direct combat, but they did not fight conventionally. They darted through the battlefield like predators, planting magnetic mines, cutting through hulls with railgun fire, slipping away before countermeasures could lock on. The Zelvax fleet, expecting an easy conquest, was reduced to wreckage within an hour. Survivors attempted to flee, only to find their jump drives disabled. No quarter was given. No mercy was shown. Every last ship was hunted down. When the silence finally fell over Proxima, it was humanity's banner that still stood. The lesson was delivered. Humanity would not be broken easily. News of the battle reached the Dominion command faster than expected. The Zelvax refused to believe it. They assumed it was an anomaly. A fluke. A mistake that would not be repeated. To prove this, they escalated. A larger fleet was mobilized, 10 times the size of the first. It moved towards Alpha Centauri, determined to extinguish the defiance before it could spread. This time, they would wipe humanity's presence from the stars entirely. But humanity was already prepared. The Dominion expected a desperate last stand, a futile attempt at resistance that would end in blood and fire. What they found was something far worse: strategy. The moment their fleet entered human space, they were herded. Not by warships, but by deception. Phantom signals lured them into minefields. Distress beacons led them into asteroid clusters rigged with explosives. Fake troop movements scattered their forces, stretching their lines thin. They were fighting an enemy that did not engage them in the open, an enemy that did not fight by their rules. When the real battle began, it was over before it even started. The Zelvax command ships, the core of their fleet, were taken out first. Orbital strike teams, inserted weeks before the battle even began, sabotaged their flagships from the inside. Their officers were assassinated in their own war rooms. Entire command structures collapsed in an instant, leaving thousands of warships leaderless, directionless. And then, humanity struck with its full force. Fleets, thought to be outnumbered and outclassed, emerged from the void with technology the Dominion had never encountered before. Reverse-engineered energy weapons tore through hulls that were supposed to be impenetrable. Shield disruptors rendered their defenses useless. Human warships, smaller but faster, weaved through the battle in unpredictable patterns, their AI-assisted targeting systems ensuring every shot counted. The Dominion forces never stood a chance. What was meant to be an extermination turned into a massacre, but not for humanity. When the last Dominion warship fell, a single message was sent back to the Zelvax homeworld. It contained no threats, no demands. Just the final moments of their fleet, burning in the void, and a single line of human text. We are coming. The wreckage of Dominion warships drifted through human space, a silent testament to a lesson learned too late. The Zelvax had underestimated their enemy, believing humanity's victories to be nothing more than statistical anomalies. Now, with 2 decisive defeats, that illusion had shattered. Zurkoth seethed in frustration, mandibles clicking in agitation as reports flooded in. Humanity was not simply resisting. It was evolving. Captured wreckage from destroyed Dominion warships had been salvaged, their advanced technology dissected, analyzed, and repurposed. Human scientists and engineers worked with a speed and efficiency that defied expectation, merging Dominion advancements with their own innovations. Where the Zelvax relied on millennia of refinement, humanity thrived on adaptation. Shields, previously exclusive to Dominion fleets, now protected human warships. Energy-based weaponry, once a technological gap, had been reverse-engineered and modified for greater efficiency. AI-assisted combat systems transformed human ships into precision instruments of destruction. It was not just technology that had changed. Humanity's tactics evolved with each engagement. They studied their enemy, learning their weaknesses, exploiting their rigid doctrine. Dominion battle formations, once considered infallible, were turned against them. Humans did not engage in predictable, large-scale conflicts. They struck where the Dominion was weakest, dismantling supply chains, ambushing reinforcement fleets, and crippling logistical hubs. They did not fight to hold ground, they fought to ensure their enemy could not. As the Dominion prepared its next assault, human forces moved first. They launched a series of precision raids deep into Zelvax-controlled territory, targeting shipyards and fuel depots. Stealth ships, utilizing newly developed cloaking technology, infiltrated enemy space, planting virus programs into Dominion communication networks. Fleets moved in coordinated strikes, overwhelming isolated enemy forces before vanishing back into the darkness. The Zelvax were not used to fighting an opponent that refused to meet them head-on. Psychological warfare became a key weapon. Captured Dominion officers were released, but not before being implanted with false memories, visions of human numbers far beyond what existed, of doomsday weapons capable of wiping out entire planets. Every Zelvax ship that fell into human hands was repurposed and used against their own kind. The Dominion's confidence wavered, their forces beginning to second-guess every maneuver. Fear spread like an infection through their ranks. The breaking point came when a key Dominion fleet was lured into a system that did not exist on their star charts. What they believed to be a poorly defended human colony was, in fact, a battlefield meticulously prepared in advance. Gravity wells disabled their ability to escape. Weapons platforms, hidden within asteroids, emerged to unleash devastation. Human warships swarmed them, using newly developed electronic warfare systems to disable targeting arrays and sensor feeds. The battle lasted mere hours, ending in complete annihilation. For the first time in their history, the Zelvax faced an enemy that was not just fighting back, but actively outpacing them. Their strategies were no longer effective. Their numerical superiority no longer guaranteed victory. Humanity had transformed from an underestimated nuisance into an existential threat. Zurkoth watched as the war reports arrived, his certainty eroding with each defeat. The momentum had shifted. The prey had become the predator. The Dominion's war machine, once an unstoppable force, now found itself collapsing under its own weight. For centuries, their conquests had been swift, decisive, and absolute. They had never faced prolonged resistance, never been forced into a war of attrition. But humanity had changed the rules. What should have been a short campaign had dragged into a grinding, merciless conflict. Resources stretched thin. Supply lines became vulnerable. Morale within the Dominion fleets withered under the relentless strain. The war was no longer about domination, it had become a fight for survival. Humanity did not relent. With each engagement, they adapted. Every battle served as an opportunity to refine their methods, to evolve beyond anything the Zelvax had prepared for. The Dominion's fleets still held numerical superiority, but that advantage meant nothing when their forces were systematically isolated, cut off, and dismantled. Human intelligence networks fed real-time data into battlefields, allowing coordinated strikes with pinpoint accuracy. Where the Dominion relied on rigid command structures, humanity thrived on decentralized warfare, independent units operating with lethal efficiency. The core territories of the Dominion, once untouchable, now found themselves under siege. Sabotage operations crippled orbital defenses. Planetary garrisons, demoralized and abandoned by retreating fleets, surrendered without a fight. Zelvax civilians, who had never known war on their own soil, began to feel the creeping dread of an enemy they could not see, could not predict, and could not stop. Entire industrial hubs fell silent as vital resources were intercepted before they could reach shipyards. Dreadnoughts, once symbols of absolute power, sat unfinished in dry docks, useless without the materials to complete them. Zurkoth, who had once spoken with such certainty of humanity's defeat, now faced a reality he could not ignore. The Dominion's fleets, the pride of their empire, were being dismantled piece by piece. What should have been a display of overwhelming strength had turned into a desperate retreat. The enemy they had dismissed as weak had become something else entirely, an unstoppable force driven not by fear, but by sheer, unyielding determination. In a final bid to regain control, the Dominion assembled what remained of its forces for a last, decisive battle. Every remaining warship was pulled from defensive positions, every soldier conscripted into the fight. It was a gamble, a desperate attempt to turn the tide before the war was lost completely. But as the fleet moved into position, ready to reclaim the initiative, they realized too late that they had fallen into the same trap they had once set for others. Humanity had been waiting. Every movement of the Dominion fleet had been anticipated, every tactical maneuver countered before it could be executed. The battlefield had been chosen in advance, a carefully orchestrated kill zone where escape was impossible. And when the final engagement began, there was no hope for victory. The Dominion's fleet, the last remnant of an empire that had ruled the stars for generations, was obliterated. Their greatest weapons, their most advanced warships, reduced to nothing but drifting wreckage in the void. The war was over. The Zelvax had lost. The Zelvax Dominion, once the undisputed power of the galaxy, had been reduced to ruins. Their war fleets, once numbering in the thousands, had been shattered. Their colonies, once sprawling centers of industry, now stood as silent graveyards. What remained of their forces had fled to the homeworld, the last stronghold of an empire that had ruled through fear for generations. The war had not just been lost, it had been a complete and total unraveling of everything they had built. Zurkoth, the once mighty High Chancellor, sat in the heart of a dying empire, surrounded by advisors who had no more answers to give. They had prepared for every scenario but this. They had never considered the possibility of defeat. And now, the consequences of their arrogance had come to claim them. Humanity had fought harder, adapted faster, and refused to be broken. Every strategy the Dominion had relied upon for centuries had been countered, dismantled, and turned against them. A final transmission arrived from the Terran forces. No demands. No negotiations. No offers of surrender. Only a simple statement: humanity was coming. And this time, they were not coming to defend. They were coming to end it. Across the Zelvax homeworld, panic spread like wildfire. Civilian populations, who had always believed their rulers invincible, now faced the unthinkable, an enemy at their doorstep. The government, once a pillar of absolute control, fractured under the weight of its failures. Entire factions turned on each other, blaming leadership, military command, or technological stagnation for their downfall. Revolts erupted as planets long subjugated by the Dominion seized the moment to rise up. The fear that the Zelvax had instilled in others for centuries had now turned inward, consuming them from within. And then, the final blow came. The sky above the homeworld darkened as human warships arrived, a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These were not the outgunned defenders that had once struggled against Dominion oppression. These were the victors, the executioners of an empire that had overstepped and paid the price. The bombardment began without ceremony, without hesitation. Strategic targets were erased in precise, devastating strikes. Shipyards crumbled. Military installations were turned to ash. The last remnants of the once great Dominion fleet were annihilated before they could even attempt a last stand. Zurkoth, watching from the ruins of his war chambers, finally understood. The moment humanity had refused to kneel, The war had already been decided. The Zelvax had never stood a chance, not against an enemy that refused to break, refused to surrender, and refused to be anything less than victorious. As the final detonations rocked the capital, silence fell over what had once been the heart of the Dominion. There would be no occupation. No forced rule. Humanity had no interest in ruling over the broken remains of its enemy. The war had been about survival, and now, it was over. The Zelvax were no longer a threat. They were no longer anything at all. The message had been sent to the galaxy. Humanity was not to be conquered. It was not to be threatened. Any who dared to try would meet the same fate as the Dominion. The war was won. The galaxy had changed forever. And humanity stood at its center, unchallenged, unstoppable, and undeniable.